Okay, Lina, it would be great to get started with a little bit of your personal journey into the world of veganism. What's kind of brought you here?
Okay, totally. So I haven't been vegan long. It's been about a year and a couple of months, and I'm a trained chef. So for 8 years, I've been in the hospitality industry. I've been trained by some top-end chefs working in high establishments in London. So, butchering whole lamb carcasses and doing the whole animal stuff. And actually, so a year and a couple of months ago, I started working with a company called Arbonne, and they are a health and wellness brand. I had no idea what I was kind of getting myself in for beforehand, but it happened to open my whole life into consciousness and sustainable living, and just being more of a conscious consumer and an eco person. And it was all about advocating sustainable, clean products that are all vegan. And before then, I hadn't had a clue. If anyone had said to me, would you be vegan? I probably would have laughed in their face, with no disrespect. But I was so arrogant and ignorant. And it just opened up like a whole can of worms. And yeah, that's what started the journey, basically. I was so sick of my job in chefing. I was working long hours. I hated my life. I couldn't piece it all together. And then slowly, after starting working with Arbonne, I was looking at all of my products and the things on the back of them and the labels, and just questioning what I was actually putting on my skin, in my body. And then I realized that I actually needed to change my career path, because I was advocating mass meat production, eating animal products that aren't always the best for your health, especially in large consumptions. I was eating meat for every single meal. And I was so desensitized to the industry, butchering half lamb carcasses on tables and not even, making the connection that actually that's an animal. So, trying to rewrite 7 years of training and kind of, come onto a new path of being a conscious consumer and being conscious of my impact on the world. Me and my boyfriend, we both went vegan a year ago. And we started researching everything that we were using, from talcum powder to toothpaste, fluoride, sodium lauryl sulfate, all of these chemical names that we just don't even, think would be bad for us because we're allowed to use them from high street brands. But actually, it's they're really toxic. And most of these things say toxic on them. And that was just one switch. And then it was the food that we're eating, how much plastic we're using, how we're recycling. Does the recycling actually get recycled? And all of these things. So I guess it was an environmental factor that changed us, but for the better. And I'm actually really, really glad that Arbonne came into my life. And since then, so I've actually trained at the Delaunay. It's Austrian Viennese restaurant next to Aldwych, so kind of theatre area, and it's the sister restaurant to the Wolseley next to the Ritz. So I trained with hard chefs who are very old school, and you can probably imagine. So just kind of rewriting that and learning what I actually wanted to advocate and be a part of. It's just put me on a completely new path. And actually, I now work at a restaurant called Alta. It's all about reducitarianism. Can't say it properly, but and reducing your consumption, being conscious of the things that you're doing and what you're advocating and what you're eating. And it's the first time I've worked in a vegan restaurant, but this isn't vegan food when you go to a restaurant and the last option on there is, I don't know, nachos with broccoli and cauliflower in it or something crazy. This is the most incredible food you've ever eaten, and it's vegan. And it's not just for vegans. It's trying to come away from the nuance of what a vegan is. And it's just the more that you're doing is better. And the more you're reducing and the more conscious you are, the more you're doing for the planet. And I really like that. So, it aligns with me. And I'm happy.
That's quite a story, quite a way into it. I mean, I'm fascinated by being in that kind of world for 8 years, that length of time, the dedication, the time, the energy, the effort that's gone into building all of that knowledge. And then this this sort of awakening kind of moment. Was that over the period of weeks, months? What was the kind of timescale from, you getting, involved in this business, finding out all this stuff, and then wanting to change your whole career?
2 months. So it was quite quick. And it just came from being really miserable. I was drinking like 7 coffees a day at work. I was working in the most amazing restaurant. It was a little independent pasta restaurant in Deptford, so South London. And we made pasta every day and bread every day, but it was so much hard work that we didn't actually have time to sit and eat for ourselves. So I lived on coffee. I lived on pasta. I was getting fat and unhappy and kind of blaming everything else, but not seeing that it was what I was doing to myself. So I decided to run away to Barcelona.
Oh, wow, did you?
Yeah. And I realized when I was there that I was still really unhappy. And at the same time, I just started working with Arbonne. So like slowly through little bits of information I was getting, because I was supporting a vegan brand. And it was so many light bulbs going off in my head. Like, how could I be using these products that say toxic on the back of them and we all use them? Or like bleach, that says harmful to aquatic life in long-term use. And we never would see that. But it literally says that on all of our products. And I guess it was just that, and then making the connection between food and yeah, I just wanted to change my life, really. And it actually did. It sounds a bit cheesy, but I really have changed as a person to who I was a year ago. So
yeah, that 2-month period, like, what was that like? Sort of having to go back, to your job, doing all the things that because the expectation would have still been there, right? That you were gonna butcher animals, you were gonna cook them, serve their flesh, etc. All that kind of stuff. That expectation was still there. What I can't imagine. What was that 2 months like?
Well, I quit and I moved to Barcelona.
That's pretty bad.
Yeah. I didn't think I could hack it anymore. And actually, it's funny that you asked that, because recently, before I found Alta, I was looking at different restaurants, thinking like, where would I want to work? What aligns with my new values? And I went for a trial at a Michelin star restaurant in South London. And I was there for half a day, and I just told the chef, I can't do this, I'm going to go home. I tried bone marrow, duck livers, foie gras, so many different things that I just couldn't hack it. And I thought, if this is what it's going to be like, I really don't want to advocate this sort of life anymore. And it's hard when you've been trained, and that's the thing that's like ingrained in your head. But yeah, I think things are changing,
How was it kind of, received? I imagine you built up quite a network over the time of that 8 years of, people who know you in the industry, in the trade. They know they know your work and so on. And from my limited understanding of that world, I think I've read an Anthony Bourdain book. That was probably about
He's amazing.
As far as I've gone. But I read, somebody recommended it to me, and I'd already gone vegan by this point, and I didn't get, I read it, but at the same time, the first chapter, I almost stopped reading it, because it was sort of the great delight in eating everything, eating any animal that was available. And he talked about growing up in, and eating this, that, and the other. And it was kind of like quite gruesome to somebody who's, has my views. I'm kind of interested in that. What was the reaction like from all of those people? It must have been like, Lina, what do you mean? Like, how was
Absolutely. That? I mean, just like that, actually. And my mentor, or a really close friend of mine who trained me for like 4 years, he was the one that said, why don't you go for this trial at this Michelin star restaurant? You're going to love it. They're going to love you. And halfway through the day, you would never quit. You would never say, I can't do this. Or like, I don't agree with what you're doing. And I did that. And it was met with such hostility for a second. And then I explained where I was coming from. And actually, the chef was really, really good. And he just said, do you know what? Things are definitely changing, and you have to be true to yourself. And if that's how you feel, then thank you for coming. And people have been like that, for in the start, it's like, what are you doing? Like, are you sure this is the right move? You vegan? Like, laughing in my face. But I think I kind of deserve it, because that's the way I kind of treated people when they told me that's their views. Yeah. So.
Wow. Yeah, it's amazing to think. Yeah, I'm interested in that. You mentioned there that the sort of views are changing. Would you say that they're changing kind of across the board, or you've kind of got lucky with a few connections you've met? You know, as we've seen like a popularity in veganism rise, you know, over the last 3, 4, 5 years, particularly, it feels like a sort of exponential growth, and that keeps continuing. Do you think, you know, sort of chefs in the sort of mainstream are taking this more and more seriously, and even if they're seeing it as a commercial opportunity at first?
It's a really good question. I mean, I think people are becoming more conscious in general. Whether or not hospitality is, I'm not sure. I think chefing is so attached to kind of this old-timey view of, you know, you go to work, you're a slave, you work for this many hours, you don't ask for anything, and you graft and you graft and you graft, and then eventually you climb the ladder, and then you become this macho chef. And there's lots of toxic masculinity and like all of these things surrounded with it, and eating meat is macho. And I think, you know, as more chefs who kind of come out of the identity of being, you know, I don't want to say it because it's not fair on white men or white middle-aged men, but, you know, more chefs are coming out, and they're from different ethnicities and different backgrounds and wanting to advocate different things. And I do think the industry is changing. I feel like the Gordon Ramsays and the, you know, the old-timey chefs with these views probably wouldn't be the people that would change. But I feel like the industry as a whole is changing, and people are kind of coming away from Michelin, and they're enjoying, you know, independent restaurants that do this thing that's really nice. And it's quite nice to see. And I think even from the commercial aspect, you know, every time I walk down the street, I see a new advert for like plant milk, or, you know, McDonald's trying to get on board with like, and it's crazy because I feel like there is social consciousness and social awakening, and it's quite nice to see. So yeah, I'd like to say yes.
I can only imagine what that world's like. I mean, you get a sense of that just from, again, my limited knowledge of like, you know, TV chefs growing up, and like you say, the Ramsays and the Rick Steins and the showing my age now, Keith Floyd and all those kind of people. Like there was that very. Yeah, really, it's interesting you mentioned that. I never really thought about it, but this idea of it being really wrapped up in masculinity, this notion that for some weird reason that like a real man like kills things, like it's bizarre. When you mention it, it's absolutely, you know, you can't avoid it. It's there, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And it actually makes me think of my dad, which is quite funny. And when I told him, you know, we'd made the swap, he just laughed at us, and he was like, yeah, this is just a phase, you'll be back. And he's a sort of guy who drinks like a pint of milk a day and bacon for breakfast and, you know, beef for lunch and every single animal throughout the day. So yeah, I think it is connected to lots of toxic masculinity. So
I think you're right. I'm interested in the practical side of things. So 8 years learning one particular way, well, not one way, but you know what I mean, like a methodology of cooking with animals and their body parts and secretions and all this kind of stuff, and then moving away from that. What was that like a relearning process? Because I know, like from personal experience, moving across just as a home cook, you know, you go from this idea of like the meat's the center of the plate and everything else is kind of like a bit of a posh garnish, if you like. Maybe that was a sort of because my sides weren't great, but you know that was but even the term sides, you know, the vegetables are the sides, they're never the main.
Yeah.
What was the practical element of it like? You having to like relearn this, you know, this skill set you've developed over the years. Was it Was that a difficult process, or was it, sort of almost transposing stuff you already knew?
When I was cooking, like the year before we went vegan, I was in a really lovely restaurant that really, like, they had a nose to tail movement. So we still did meat, obviously, but the meat wasn't from, farms where the animals are treated horribly. And actually, they had a fairly decent life before they were killed and then put on your plate and you're eating flesh. But we put so much care into where our vegetables came from and how we looked after the veg and how we cooked it. And I would actually say that that was part of the process in turning, because it was apparent that the veg for us, Owen and I, my boyfriend, we were eating veg and that was the star of the plate. And actually the meat was the afterthought at that point. And it was just nice to come away from feeling like we had to eat meat all the time. So yeah, like, I think vegetables are an incredible thing, and I often go down the reduce aisle in Tesco's and feel like I'm rescuing vegetables.
It must be nice to have that level of skill, though, because I must admit, even though veganism's helped me improve my cooking, I can only imagine the sort of thing that you'd be able to kind of cook as a professionally trained chef working at the level you've worked at.
Thank you. I mean, I would say it's quite delicious, but you'd have to, maybe you should join one of the cook-alongs and then you can see.
Well, yeah, I was going to come on to that, but before we do, I've spoken to a couple of chefs in the past and a couple of restaurant owners, actually, of vegan restaurants. And something that particularly restaurant owners, have pointed out is that it's really difficult to find training for vegan chefs. That it just that the standard routes of how chefs go about learning are, they're very dyed in the wool, to excuse the non-vegan phrase, but they're very kind of old school. That this is how you learn, the traditional way, and they've kind of said that almost that there's a problem in the sort of restaurant world, in hospitality, insofar as there's demand from the public, there's people who want to open restaurants, and there's not necessarily enough people with the skill to like staff those restaurants as chefs and so on, and kitchen staff and all the rest of it. What's your experience been like of that? I know you kind of already had your training was transposing a lot, but are you seeing that change? Is there more of an avenue for people to learn if they want to get into it, but they want to get into it as a vegan?
It's, to be honest, it is, as you say, actually. It's still quite a niche field. If you wanted to do a fully vegan cooking course, or not even a course, I guess, like educate yourself in terms of like being a chef but going down a vegan route, I don't think that'd be an option yet. And again, I think a lot of that is because, food as we know it comes from the French culture of like nouvelle cuisine and escoffier, and these people, they loved their meat. They really, really loved their meat, and it came from a place of, how can we cook this and how can we cook this bit of the animal? And I think until we fully make a conscious choice as a society that this is the accepted new norm, these things won't become normal to find. But I do feel like it's changing. Recently, I was looking online and I found a course for vegan content creators. So like building algorithms, kind of coming away from chefing. But this guy, he specifically helped vegans create business opportunities for themselves. And I thought that was really cool. So I think things are coming, but yeah.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, it's kind of sad to hear that in a way that there is still that route. I can imagine, like, as somebody, a young chef coming into the game, you'd probably feel like your career was quite limited unless you went against your ethics. You're not going to get into the Michelin-starred restaurants because there's only one in the world that's vegan, and that's in Paris. And that only became Michelin-starred like a month ago or whatever it was. Yeah. So, yeah, that's quite sad to hear. But I suppose, yeah, you're absolutely right. And I've definitely seen this in other facets of like business leadership, these courses popping up, these networking events, businesses that are supporting other businesses. And there's definitely a sense of that, which I really hope moves into the world of catering and sort of meets this, this demand that I was talking about. There's the public want it. There's restaurateurs. There's not enough chefs. Hopefully that gap's closed. It'd be on that note, I suppose it would be good to sort of move into the vegan cooking classes and your kind of trajectory and what you've got planned next, because I think you've got some exciting stuff planned.
Yeah, well, actually, that leads perfectly onto it. Hopefully, this is an offering for vegans so that they don't feel so left out. And so recently, I've just been thinking, what can we do during lockdown? I've been so bored out of my brain, wanting to be productive rather than sitting in, just ruminating. And through lots of brainstorming, have been thinking, what would people like to be doing? So I want to offer vegan cooking classes to people that want to learn how to cook vegetables, simple things, to a restaurant standard, sure. But, so people can make delicious home meals, mac and cheese, or I do a pantry staples class that I run once a month free on my Instagram. And it's just to help people who want to make their own almond milk, how to use the leftover almond meal to make crackers or flapjack bars, and just, show people how easy it is to use every bit of the vegetable, your cauliflower leaves, your cauliflower, not to throw things away, because I think we also do that. And that, I don't know if that comes part and parcel with veganism. I don't know your opinion on that. But for me, that was a huge part of it, because in hospitality, you see so much food going in the bin and, people are starving. You go down the road and people are begging for money. Yet we're throwing perfectly good food in the bin because it's not this size, it's this size. And that to me is just absolutely crazy. And yeah, I feel like it's a whole. And the people that are, open-minded enough to look at veganism are also people that are open-minded enough to realize these other things that are affecting the world as a whole. So yeah, vegan cooking classes. I'm throwing some at the moment for Chinese New Year for all the people that can't get home to celebrate. And it's a vegan 5-course meal. We're throwing one on the 17th and one on the 26th of February. And yeah, there's still spaces for the 26th. So yeah, check out my Instagram if you're interested. Asian Sensation. I don't know if you can pop a link or something in there, but
oh yeah, there'll definitely be in the show notes, because I think it's just such an awesome concept, and not one that I've seen, to be honest, at all. I don't think I've seen anybody doing. I've seen lots of folks doing, a recipe that they've filmed and they've put online or whatever, but not necessarily a cooking class. So is the principle here that people cook along with you, or is it kind of they learn from you and then go and try and replicate after?
It's like ready, steady, cook. So at the moment for the events, I'm actually prepping the food in advance and then sending it via courier to people's houses. So it's limited to London, and they do have to pay for their ingredients and my time. So for the Chinese New Year courses, it's £50 for 5 courses for 2 people. It's really well priced. I mean, you'd spend that on a takeaway, wouldn't you? And it's just to teach people how to make their vegetables delicious and how to enjoy food without feeling like meat or dairy products have to be the centerpiece, because it doesn't. It's changing. And vegetables are bloody delicious. Sorry.
That's so cool. So it's like the price of a going out to a restaurant, but with the chef telling you how to do it so you can do it again yourself next time, kind of thing.
Yeah. And you get recipes included. We cook along together. So I'll just be saying, so next we're going to do this, and we put something in the saucepan, we cook it together. And it's actually really good fun. We have a laugh. It's a good opportunity for people to network as well. And it's not just for vegans. It's for other people who, want to look at different ways to feed themselves, and hopefully can change a couple of people's minds as well. So
have you done these before? How many of these have you done? Have you trialed them yet, or
so I've brand new? Well, it's pretty new as an idea. Last month we did 2 cooking classes, one for pantry staples. I did a private party for a friend, and the Chinese New Year is the thing that's going on at the moment. So this is the first paid event that I'm actually doing. And just because we're actually offering out ingredients, so the pantry staples, it's like, let's use everything that's in your cupboards. You might have to go and spend £10 in the shop, but yeah, it's just, we're all stuck at home, why not hone the art of something, especially when we're cooking for ourselves all the time or getting takeaways. Bring restaurant standard food into your home that you've cooked and you feel so fantastic about. So
such a cool idea. It's really cool. What's the been reception like on those kind of like a couple of trial events that you've done, the pantry essentials and the one that you did with the kind of the group who came to you directly? Like how have they responded?
They've loved it. And it's fantastic to see because I've been asking for like short feedback and long feedback. So straight after the event, they'll say, oh, it's fantastic, you could have done this better or whatever. And I'm telling people to be as critical as possible. But for the long-term feedback, it's actually really cool because people come back after a week and they say, after learning how to do this, I had enough ingredients, so I did it again later on in the week. And I had healthy snacks. I didn't have to just, snack on chips all day. I had almond crackers and baba ganoush because that was the actual thing that we were doing. We did almond milk, flapjacks, almond crackers, baba ganoush, and like how to de-seed a pomegranate. And yeah, they said they had enough food to snack on for the whole week, which was just really cool.
That's so cool. So cool. Yeah, it's like the stuff like you mentioned there, like the making of the almond milk and things like that. With the audiences that you've tried it with so far, and sort of from what you've seen in the vegan community in the last kind of year, do you think there's, I'm just thinking about those from a personal point of view. Those. Firstly, I've attempted to make cashew milk once.
How did it go?
And it went quite well. But I didn't, to be honest, I didn't do anything with the leftovers because I just didn't know what to do with them. So it felt like a waste, which then felt like, well, maybe I shouldn't do this again. And I went back to kind of buying stuff. Do you think that that's kind of one of the reasons why folks often refer to like veganism as expensive, because they don't necessarily have these skills, so end up buying expensive kind of convenience versions of, when actually they don't need to do that?
Absolutely. I think, capitalism will monetize anything that's popular in the moment. I don't know if I've lost you.
No, I'm still here.
Cool. It just went fuzzy for a second. I feel like capitalism will monetize anything that's popular and in demand. Unfortunately, through this movement, people have seen that they can monetize through this experience. So cashew milk, which is like 3% cashews and the rest is water and fortified vitamins, is like £2 for, and that's crazy. Oat milk, it's like oats and water. And yeah, I feel like, veganism doesn't have to be expensive. When Owen and I do go to a shop, we find that we do spend a lot on vegetables because we eat like 10 vegetables in a meal. But I think there are more affordable ways that you can have vegan meals and vegan eating. It's just about kind of being clever and seeing what you can do with waste bits. Sometimes we do like potato crisps with like the leftover peelings. We just cook them on high, and we'll use like cauliflower leaves, and we'll do like cauliflower crisps with a dip. So yeah, I think there are ways that you can definitely do it, but I guess people don't have the knowledge, and that's what we want to do. We want to help people be able to do that.
So I don't even see that in the sort of the quote unquote like vegan influencer chefs. I don't see that kind of focus. And you mentioned it earlier. To go back to that point, I 100% am with you that I think once you start looking into the world of veganism, your eyes start opening to all kinds of other things, that intersectional oppressions across the piece, whether they're in the animal world or whether they're human oppressions, you start to see those. You start to see issues of sustainability, issues with corporate capitalist kind of greed, monopolizing movements, even within veganism. You see these things, and I sometimes then think, well, is there a danger that when there isn't any voices out there connecting those dots, even if it's from a point of view of food and saying, look at the waste you've got here, don't waste that, use this, this is how you do it, that we create the same problems, but we save a lot of animals, and that's fantastic, and from an environmental point of view the damage is lessened, but we are still in the same system, if you like. We've just monetized veganism and done the same bad things to it. It's just as wasteful, it's just as oppressive when you look at chocolate and coffee and those kind of things. Does that sort of concern you, that there aren't enough of those voices connecting the dots?
I feel like everyone at this point is like fighting for a side, and I think the voices are good as long as they're constructive, and when they come to a point of just making noise for the sake of it to fight someone else, like we're just fighting each other, like we should be united in wanting to make this place nice for all of us to live in. And the other day we walk around the supermarket and I saw this lady, and her trolley was filled with there wasn't a vegetable in there. It was all just like frozen stuff, animal products, cheap punch and all the rest. And for a minute I felt really sad, like to the point where I was like trying to hold back tears. And I saw her 2 little boys, and I was just thinking, like, this lady probably can't afford to eat healthily and has the knowledge to know how to make these things affordable for her whole family. And in that moment it was so clear, the communities that are oppressed, and how I guess healthy eating is a luxury for some, or privilege, and it shouldn't be in the 21st century. I hate it. So I think if you're an influencer who's doing all of these things to just make noise, versus someone who actually wants to help communities and like start making people, feel united and feel healthier together, it's 2 different things. So I don't know if we need any more voices. I think we need more people doing things.
Yeah. Grassroots direct action of any sort, whether it's simple as, I don't mean to say simple in that, it's an easy thing to do, but teaching somebody how to cook, using the skins of potatoes, like as you say it, I think I just flash back to all the meals I've made with potatoes in the last 2 weeks where I haven't done that, and thought, why? What a waste! At best they might go in a compost bin, but I could have, there wasn't it. I could have used them. Somebody could have eaten those. I could have eaten them. My family could have, so on. And that's a knowledge thing. And like you said, I'm personally privileged enough to be able to do that. But if you don't have the knowledge and you're not perhaps privileged enough to be able to afford to throw those in the bin, then you could end up down that, because it's been monetized to make those, the meat options cheap, the unhealthy options cheap. So that's how you go about doing it if you didn't have those things. So I think it's amazing to have somebody advocating for that, wanting to, directly teach people and share that knowledge that they've got, which has been hard earned and, earned at a cost as well. It's not easy to get to where you've got to as a chef, no doubt.
Yeah. I mean, I would give huge praise to Arbonne in itself. It's a network marketing company, and it gets a lot of backlash because the kind of industry of network marketing is I don't know if you know about it too much, but kind of gets a hey hun reputation of people reaching out to each other and pyramid schemes and all of this crap. But actually the company is a B corporation, and it's done so much good for my mindset and just fully changed me as a person. And I'm so grateful. I don't think I would be saying that I'm grateful either without having this thing come into my life, because it's fully changed everything that I think about, from what I eat and what I put in my body to how I wake up in the morning and the gratitude I feel for things and the things that I want to do. So yeah, I think we all need a bit of Arbonne in our life.
Have you found many like-minded folks from a veganism perspective through that particular community?
Massively. Yeah, because I wasn't vegan when I started. And And yeah, I think even if they're not vegan, they are open to all of these issues that are issues. And they're probably more flexible in terms of, eating meat maybe once a week or eating meat as a treat once a month, and doing more to reduce and doing more to advocate, positive change, positive mindset, working towards things that you want to do. I mean, the community is incredible in the sense of they just pick people up. I've never met another bunch of people that just want to see other people excel and thrive in whatever field they're in. And it's really cool from a networking perspective as well. If you're someone who loves to network, it's awesome to just meet people from all different walks of life, different ages. Like, I've got a really good friend. She's 65 years old and she's a costume designer in central London. I would have never met her, without this platform. And we're really close mates. So yeah, I don't know. It's cool.
I'd love to go to this notion of sort of messaging for a second, and how we can effectively message veganism. And I'm thinking of your perspective as somebody who's been, firmly ensconced in the world of animal agriculture through hospitality, and the kind of attitudes and so on. What do you see as kind of like effective in the way to communicate to non-vegans? In terms of whether you call that activism or just helping spread that message. What kind of have you seen work, see as effective? Your view on it?
Do you know what? I think documentaries and mockumentaries and like all of those things do actually help, because we're spending a lot of our time watching Netflix at the moment. I don't know if you've seen Carnage by Simon Amstel. Brilliant. And it isn't preachy in the way that some people can be. It just makes light humor of all these things that actually I do think, in 10 years' time, we might look back on and think, oh, how could we have lived this life? And I think that's a really cool way to spread the message. I think from an environmental place, we're all living on this same rock. So I think that's like opened avenues for lots of people who maybe don't care so much about the animal, cruelty and animal welfare. I think just connecting and just, sharing tips and things that we think are helpful. Like even from the potato skins, like that's not even my thing. A friend of mine was doing it and I was like, that's such a smart idea. And she was like, why would we waste this? And I've been like telling everyone, it's not even my idea, but I just want to tell everyone because it's like, it's genius.
It's genius.
Yeah.
It's so genius. Obvious as well, but yet no one does it.
Yeah. And like, for what? People, how long does it take to grow a potato? And then we just like eat it within a minute and the skins go in the bin. It's like such a waste. Yeah.
Yeah. And nutritionally, I mean, you'll know better than me, but one of the best parts, right?
Yeah. Skin for everything.
At least I was told that as a kid.
Yeah. Skins for everything. They hold loads of nutrition.
Yeah. Sort of from a nutritional standpoint, just coming on to that, like the received wisdom of the mainstream, and, as somebody who's cooked for omnivorous folks for years, the received wisdom is what it is, that protein is required through the consumption of animals, that dairy is good for us, for our bones, and so on and so forth. Did you have to, you sound like you obviously went down the journey sort of ethically pretty quickly. Once you'd made that switch mentally, it was kind of like, I'm all in here. And you obviously had the sort of the knowledge to be able to cook. But was there a disconnect in terms of the knowledge of, nutritionally for you? Did you have to learn, was there any fear from you that you were like, well, I'm not sure I'm going to, thrive and survive on this? Or were you kind of, through your cooking experience, pretty knowledgeable on what you'd need to do to replace what and so on and so forth?
It's so funny because as a chef, I was probably my most unhealthy because, you spend all your day cooking. You literally live off a 2-minute meal that you eat while standing up, 7 cups of coffee, and then on you go with 7 years later, you're having like heart palpitations in bed. Talking about myself. And I think actually veganism was such a health kick. And my mum was the one that was really worried about where we were going to get our protein. She called us up one day. She was like, I know this is just a phase, but where are you guys getting your protein? Are you getting enough of this? Are you getting enough of that? And I think, if you look at most of our food nowadays, it doesn't have the nutritional content that it might have had, 20 years ago. Our soils aren't as rich in mineral. We need to supplement our diets in general, even if you are a meat eater. And the kind of crazy thing was like watching a few documentaries and realizing that like we eat meat and they have protein, but they eat grass and that's where they get their protein from. So like this middleman, like we don't need to involve him at all. So I don't know, it's been like a huge nutritional journey. I feel like I've learned more in this year going vegan in terms of nutrition than I have in like 7 years of being a chef because of lots of propaganda to a certain extent. And you get taught to cover everything in butter and salt and sugar in the chefing world to make it delicious. So, yeah.
Did you have to undo some of those habits then?
I'm a salt fiend. I love salt. And now I'm even more conscious in terms of like how much salt I'm adding to stuff. It's crazy. Even sugar. I'm more conscious about sugar than I've ever been, and sugar's been the thing that's like the hardest to give up because it's so addictive, right?
Oh,
and
yeah. And sadly, vegan. I wish it wasn't. I've found a ton of vegan cakes to eat. At the beginning, I was quite healthy, lost loads of weight. It was great. Then I discovered loads of vegan cake, and then never mind.
What's a vegan cake that you like? Tell me.
There kind of isn't one that I don't. To be honest, I literally will eat any cake with coffee is like a thing. I think it was years and years ago I used to smoke, and so I'm quite like a ritualistic kind of I like to grind coffee beans and do the slow process and it used to be accompanied by a cigarette, and now that is like there's a different ritual. There's got to be something sweet involved and so on. Occasionally I have good periods where I replace the cake with dates and just eat a couple of like nice medjool dates or something with it. But I'm one of those people, unfortunately, that goes to a restaurant or a coffee shop, and if there's a new vegan cake, I feel like obliged to try it, even if I'm not in any way hungry or need a piece of cake. It just feels like, what's there? I've got to try it.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm the same.
But yeah, in terms of if I had to, if you nailed me down to a favourite, it'd be between like a lemon drizzle and then kind of anything with like a cinnamon. Anything with cinnamon. I'm a bit of a cinnamon obsessive.
Love that. It's very rare. You hear like chocolate or coffee or, strawberry, but I make a banging cinnamon roll with like frosting. I'll send you the recipe.
Oh, yeah, please do.
Yeah.
Please do.
Well, they're not that bad.
Okay, that's fine. I keep meaning to get into this. I went to this little cafe once that did like raw vegan cakes and activated nuts and stuff like this. I hadn't even heard of Activate. I had to go home and I styled it out in the cafe. Was like, oh yeah, of course, activated nuts, fantastic. And then I went because the lady was like telling me like I'd know, right? And then I had to go home and Google it.
What's an essentially?
Oh yeah, I was like, how on earth do you activate a nut? Like, is there a switch that I've missed on the? But apparently, I think you soak. I'm probably getting this wrong. There's probably people screaming. You soak them, and I think, and in terms of it, A, makes them easier to like blend into like a cake mix, but B, it unlocks some sort of nutritional profile in them. Wow. Apparently.
Wow, I'm gonna have to go and research this. That's amazing.
You'll Google this afterwards and think he's literally just made that up. I don't know where he's or this person in the coffee shop has conned him into buying a piece of cake for twice the price of a normal one because it had activated nuts in it.
Just a great
But
salesman.
yeah, she was excellent. It was fantastic. A little vegan coffee shop where I live. Fantastic.
Love that.
But yeah, activated nuts.
And
But
raw
yeah,
cakes.
raw vegan.
Yeah, very delicious. My housemate
Yeah.
is a genius. She's not vegan or gluten-free, but we live with a celiac. And she is incredible. She makes vegan, gluten-free cakes that are all raw. And she uses like dates that then become caramel and peanut butter for this, and like cacao nibs and cacao powder and coconut oil. And then it sets like a chocolate layer, and it's amazing. Amazing.
I keep meaning to get into that kind of thing because it's just delicious. Like whenever I have it, and you don't feel quite as bad.
Yeah.
It probably is bad. There's probably lots of sugar, but you don't feel quite as bad.
I don't think it's as naughty because you kind of use like dried fruit instead.
Okay, that's right then.
Yeah,
it's fine. It's fine. It's absolutely fine.
Have your cake.
Like, you've been to Deliciously Ella?
I haven't. Does she have like her own shop? Is it noisy?
That's fine. That's
Okay.
fine. Don't worry. There's some people hanging out. I like that lamp, by the way. It's very nice.
Thank you. It's held together with duct tape.
I can't see the duct tape, so that's fine.
I've bought Deliciously Ella's like granola bars and her like peanut butter balls, like banging.
Yeah.
But
she has a restaurant in Wayhouse Street.
Oh wow!
Behind Oxford Street.
I'll have to check it out.
It's amazing. Yeah, I don't know if they're doing takeaway at the moment and stuff, but it's incredible. Really good, all vegan. She never uses the word vegan at all. It doesn't say it anywhere. It doesn't say plant-based. It doesn't say anything. It just sells stuff, but all of the stuff is vegan. So
I love that.
Like if you buy, and every time I've been in there, and it's usually around breakfast time, weirdly, just because I've been like in town for meetings and whatever. And every time I go in there, there are folks who clearly aren't vegan because they say, the sort of barista says, "What milk would you like?" And they always go, "Oh, normal milk." Not that there's anything normal about drinking cow's milk, but they say normal, and then they sort of say, "Oh, well, we do oat milk and soy milk," and 9 times out of 10, people just go, "Oh, okay, I'll have oat milk then." There's no like, "What? Why have you not taken the milk from a small calf?" And you know. So it's a really interesting tactic from a marketing point of view, just to not say it and just make great food.
Yeah,
I should probably ask you what your view on that is. Actually,
I think it's great. That's the way we should be going. Like, it shouldn't just be food for vegans and food for non-vegans. It's like, this food is fantastic. Let's everyone eat it. And that's kind of what Alta's about. You should check it out, actually, when we're not in lockdown.
I've never been. I need to, yeah.
So it's a new pop-up that's just opened. And so Andy, my head chef, he is such a cool dude. His idea about reducing your impact and conscious living, let's go with that. Like, his food is just absolutely delicious. He didn't train, he actually fell into cooking. He's an actor by trade. And he decided to go and eat in a couple of places. He really loved the food, and then started like volunteering his time on his days off. And just learned so much about like Asian food. That was the avenue that he went down. And the beautiful thing about Asian food is that lots of it is vegan, but not because it's trying to be, it's just naturally vegan. Yeah. Coconut milk, rice, and just delicious. And he's kind of gone down that route, and he just makes absolutely delicious food for vegans and for non-vegans. And yeah, you come into Alta and it doesn't really say like vegan anywhere. You just get really delicious food. And I think at certain points you probably play in your mind, you know, is this cheese? Is this that? Because it's all a little bit experimental, but delicious.
Do you get lots of omnivorous folk in there?
Some that probably come in thinking, "Oh, it's vegan food, I'm not going to enjoy it," and actually leave feeling really satisfied. So,
dragged in there with their vegan mate and then end up loving it.
Literally.
Love it. So it'd be remiss of me not to ask you for a little bit of a top tip whilst I've got you as a professional chef.
Okay.
And hopefully a tip for folks out there, sort of thinking of, the sort of pantry essentials. What for you are the kind of, if we were to say 5 kind of things that like every vegan should have in their kind of cupboard, the most like versatile kind of ingredients. And I know that's really hard to pin down to 5, but if you had to, 5 kind of cupboard essentials.
Pretty easy, actually. Chia
I
seeds.
was,
Sorry, go for it.
Yeah. No, I was like, should I put you on the spot? But you're a professional. You're fine.
Chia seeds.
Chia seeds.
100% like the best egg substitute. When I first started like just plant-based living, I was like, how am I going to do it? Because I love cake. And chia seeds, genius. Gram flour is another one.
Yeah.
Do you use it?
I'm winning so far. I've got both of those.
Love
got a massive bag of gram flour. I love it.
Yeah, it's so good for like chickpea omelets or like pakoras. So it's so easy to use. It's a great substitute. What else? Dates, very good sweetener and adhesive for cakes. What else? Peanut butter, or almond butter, like both delicious.
Live off the stuff. I feel really sorry for folks who've got a nut allergy and are vegan.
Yeah, I don't know how you do it.
Yeah, because that's rough. I mean, there's obviously loads of people who do, and they do an amazing job, but I don't know about not having peanut butter. I'd be quite sad about life.
Are you, what's your favourite nut butter?
It depends, because like, this is a bit of a, like, I have sort of a bit of a, like, almond butter feels like a bit more decadent to me. So it doesn't feel like something I should be having every day. I don't know if it is or it isn't, but it just doesn't, there's a taste sort of to it to me that sort of says, don't eat this every day. I don't know if that's right, wrong, or if it's nutritionally just as bad. But peanut butter is like a staple on my morning porridge. I'm obsessed with peanut butter. I need to be kept away from it. It's the sort of thing I'd just spoon and eat if I'm left to my own devices.
Buy them in kilo tubs.
Oh yeah. I buy the pip and nut in the kilo, like the massive ones. As big as, if they did it bigger, I'd buy it bigger. But that peanut butter definitely, and then probably like almond butter as a little treat. Cashew butter's good too. I kind of like them all. I've not met one that I haven't liked yet.
I like that. That's good. I think almond butter is probably up there. It's actually probably better for you than peanut butter.
Is it?
Lots of peanuts have pesticides in them.
Wrong. Right.
So unless they're organic or like free from pesticides, you would assume that your peanut has loads of pesticides and chemicals when they're grown. Unfortunately,
I need to go and look up my peanut butter now.
I've got my favorite peanut butter is Organic Kitchen smooth peanut butter. It comes in a kilo tub, £7, really good.
Yeah.
And it's organic, so free from pesticides.
What's it called? Organic
Kitchen. It comes in a blue tub.
This doesn't make great listening, but I'm going to write it down.
I love that we're just talking about food.
Well, why not? Hopefully somebody's interested. I'm sure they are. Talking about peanut butter. But yeah, I've not even heard of that. Is that a supermarket standard, or would you have to go somewhere to get that?
You can get it from Amazon, but I think they do them in like funny corner shops. It's a bit of a random one to find.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a Greek shop.
I'll check it out.
Yeah.
I'll check it out. I've always gone pip and nut. It always feels like the sort of the high end. No, not, it's not like your Sun Pat.
Yeah.
That doesn't taste like peanut butter. I assume there's not many peanuts in it. I'm not sure.
It's funny, isn't it?
It feels like palm oily as well.
Exactly what I was going to ask you. Like, what's your opinion on palm oil? Because I find that in lots of vegan food, palm oil is an ingredient that is used a lot.
Yeah. Well, I'd be lying if I said that there's not been some palm oil in my diet, but I do try and avoid it. Like, I'm a bit of a label reader for it and try and for example, the peanut butter choice is driven by the fact that it's like a no palm oil peanut butter. But there's things like Oreos, for example, which lots of vegan folk are super excited about because it's like, oh, they're vegan, but they're a bit palm oily. And if you go down the what's palm oil in, we just seem to use the stuff for bloody everything. Like it's just all over the place. So, and I do think it's clearly used as like pretty cheap alternative, because you tend to find not having it in a product puts a premium price on it. Like using an alternate, like if you take the pippa nut example, you've got your pippa nut and meridian. It's like the peanut butter podcast here, and a new genre of podcast that's very niche. Just nut butters.
So good.
But you've got those two, and they're like they say no palm oil and stuff, and then like all the others, pretty much all the lower level ones have got it in. So I try and avoid it, but I feel like I'm always a bit nervous to say I would never do, because I think that's a slippery slope. Someone's going to catch you out somewhere and say, oh, that thing you just had.
Yeah.
So but what I'm saying is it's a learning process, and that there's always room to find out you've done something else wrong. I think particularly in 2021, there's so much that every time I open a social media app, I realise I'm, oh my God, what I've learned something else horrible that I need to stop doing. So but generally I'd say avoid it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if it says sustainable palm oil, I start to question what is sustainable and what isn't. Yeah. But
is it? That feels like a bit of a greenwashing word that gets bandied around sometimes, doesn't it? Sustainable.
Yeah.
It's easy to stick on things.
Yeah.
I don't know if have you seen this Regenuary movement? There was a kind of counter to veganuary. So there's this chap called The Ethical Butcher. Yeah, exactly. And so he's just a butcher, but he's trying to say that the soil health, we can't get the soil health back unless we have animals, and which there may be. I think there's some evidence to suggest that animals living on the land is good for the soil, but what doesn't make the logical leap is that you then need to kill them and eat them at the end, which is the bit that he puts in there. I would say, well, just let them live on the land then.
Absolutely,
feed them, just don't kill them at the end. But anyway, so he did this whole like Regenuary thing, and it was all kind of like essentially, vegans think they're super sustainable and blah blah blah, but this is actually sustainable, and so kind of trying to latch on to some of the same language and so on. And it caused quite a bit of yeah. There's quite a few vegans who came back with a lot of facts back and so on.
I think it's really hard nowadays, especially with social media, and like it's so quick. You think you're doing something good, and then an article comes out and it's like, actually, you're the devil of the world. And it's hard nowadays, isn't it, to be accountable for all of your actions? But I think as long as you're trying, and as long as you're consciously, trying to change for the better, then give yourself props. Peanut butter without palm oil is fantastic.
I think there's an interesting point about that generally, that I think you mentioned it earlier about this kind of idea of like division within the community and within groups, and it not being helpful and so on. And I do think there's a case for like that, as you just said, there's so much to figure out every time you to have a conversation with somebody, or you see a post, or you learn something new and realize that there's another element of your life that you need to look at. And I think we really do need to like treat each other with a bit of kindness there. Like, as long as people are not actively trying to be awful, they just didn't know.
Yeah.
Then try and help each other and raise each other up and educate each other, rather than, I think sometimes we can, especially in social media, everyone wants to jump on it and say, that person's awful, like let's get rid of them. like because they did that. They
Cancel
wrought the wrong
culture.
way. Yeah, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's terrible, actually. My other half hates social media. Like, he tried living with a brick phone for about 3 months, and then he
Yeah.
lost his smartphone, and he tried doing that for 2 months, and then he realized that actually you have to call people and you have to use your calendar and your GPS and all of this stuff. But it's crazy because I feel like technology is advancing so much that people are kind of coming back to a point where they're thinking, I don't want all of this stuff anymore. I don't want people to be able to see all these aspects of my life, because you're so right. You know, we're all trying to be decent human beings, and we should be in a place where we're lifting each other up and encouraging each other to learn more and grow more, rather than damning someone for having a bit of meat or having palm oil in their dinner if they're genuinely trying to do more. So
Yeah.
I hope we can
Help
build more.
people through the other sides rather than just shut them out. You know?
Totally.
I think that's a good place. That's a good place to leave it.
Yeah.
I like it. But before we do, how can folks sign up to your live cook-alongs? Because I think that is pretty important. Where do they need to go?
Okay, so check out the Instagram. There isn't a website yet. I'm working out the technicals, a bit of a technophobe. But I have a free pantry staples event monthly. And I'm throwing events where I kind of like do some of the prep. I'm planning a make your own at some point, which is like come and make some pasta.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's a good title. I like that.
So yeah, just check out the Instagram. Keep watching the stories, and there'll be loads of info. There'll be a couple of events in the month, and yeah.
I'll put some links in. But what's the Instagram for folks who are keenly listening? Asian_sensation, but the A in sensation is a 4. Sorry. Not a problem. There we go. I've got it.
Fab.
Give that a little follow. Lovely.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Come and learn to cook.
Thanks so much for your time, Lina.
Yeah, thank you so much. And come and, even you, like Jim, I'd love to have a little cook along, maybe with you and the missus and the little one.
Do with that.
Yeah.
I could do. Oh, he'd be a nightmare, but we'd be happy to do it. But he would be causing all sorts of chaos.
Maybe
he'd probably have a lot
cookies.
of. Yeah, he'd love that. He'd love that. To be fair, we do try and get him involved with it because he does love stirring a bowl. It's just that you have to prepare for some of that bowl will be on his head.
But yeah, no, let's do it. That'd be really good fun. Maybe we can make something family safe.
Yeah, let's do it. I love it. Thanks, Lina.
Thank you for having me.